Mining Museum. Whoa. This is what they call the miners down in the shaft live here. Makes me think of Donkey Kong.
We started in a few minutes. We've got a bit of time, but we should wait for more people to join us. So feel free to fill a boat, grab a hard hat, make sure it's nice and snug on your head, while we wait for the rest of our friends to join us. But
I have wonderful light.
fortunately, we don't have those. I don't even have one of those. If you find one, let me know. I need one.
You can miners.
Oh no, we can be real miners. Real miners. You don't need a light.
Great.
Good, great, awesome. Just making sure we're all where we're supposed to be. Just ask for it. Make sure we all have the white 130 sticker. We all do. All good, great. All here at the right time where we're supposed to be. I always like to start off by asking, has anyone ever been here before? Oh, we have someone who has. Has it been long? Recently?
Years.
Couple years? No worries. Get to learn all new things if you haven't been here already, and if you have, but it's been a while, here's a nice refresher. Thank you for coming back. So, we will be heading underground shortly, but before we do, there's just a few safety things I want to go over. Starting with, we're all good, is those hard hats. Just make sure that they're nice and tight on your head. There's a little knob at the back. If you move your head around, it shouldn't be falling off. All good. We're perfectly safe in the underground, but since Britannia does count as a working mine, we are required to wear them. If it is continually falling off, specifically for our miner over here, if it keeps falling, it's okay if you do hold it. We are very safe in the underground. It's actually mostly for our tall people who will walk into the back of the wall because it's slanted. But you're not at risk of anything falling on your head. Secondly, I want to make sure that we all stick together as a group. We don't want anyone wandering away. We want to stay together, make sure we're strength in numbers, because you want to make sure you can hear my voice and follow my instructions. You want to follow my instructions because while we're underground, I will be demonstrating some of the equipment, and there will be 3 loud noises. I will give you lots of warning for these loud noises. I will give you a nice long countdown. They will not be a surprise. But if you wander away, if you cannot hear my voice, if you do not follow my instructions, they will be a surprise, and they will not be pleasant. So make sure we're staying together. You can hear my voice. We can follow my instructions. Can we all agree to do that? Nod your heads. Excellent. Great. That was a test to make sure your hard hats didn't fall off. All passed. Great job. So, we'll be boarding my train in just a second. This train is not a roller coaster. It will not be going very fast. No sharp turns, no upside downs, no backwards. But like any other large, heavy moving vehicle, I request that we all keep our arms, legs, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and any other valuable limbs inside the cart at all times. This also includes valuable items. As I said, we will not be going backwards, so don't leave anything behind. Once we get off of the train, we will not be coming back on the train. So don't leave anything on the train because they're going to move the train back here for the next group, and you won't be able to get your stuff. So, take all your stuff with you. Keep a good hand on your personal devices. It's a short 4-minute ride into the underground. I won't be talking for that time. Excellent opportunity to take videos and photos, but there is no cell service in the tunnel, so things like Find My iPhone do not work. We learned that the hard way. Don't drop your cellular devices. Before we head on to the train, let us all say goodbye to our beautiful landscape here. It is a very beautiful, bright, sunny day here in Vancouver. But it is a beautiful, beautiful land, and we want to appreciate that because we are taking this tour on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. It was here long before any of us, long before this mine, and it'll continue to be here long, long after. So, just a good thing to keep in mind while we're enjoying our time here together. But, with all that said, let us all board the train.
Back to the last one. They don't tell you that, do they? See that?
That's why I ducked.
Shoot out the neck.
Okay, over there, and I sit here. And
Duck your head getting on the train. What?
so you want to sit over here? And okay there?
I'm okay here. I mean, we don't know what's on either side.
Or,
I did the gates in the wrong order. You ignored me. I'm a professional. I've done this before. I swear.
She's gonna wake us on the train. It's
No,
gonna
it's
be a
not.
runaway
I
train.
swear.
Lock it in now.
I haven't been in a mine since I was 13 or 14.
On the train?
It was
So,
some sort of
we will be starting in
Sure.
just a second. When we're about to move, I will ring a little bell. That bell is just to signify we're about to get moving. When we initially start moving, there will be a slight jerk of the train. Nothing to fear. You're not at risk of falling out of the train, but I'd like to give a little warning so we can all brace ourselves for the initial movement. With all that said, let's get on our way.
But she's a lady driver.
Yeah, but
A man will be much smoother. You don't jerk. Oh, I'm scared.
you still.
This one over here is just wanting to go paying for gold. It's the only reason she come. Whiplash. Whiplash.
I have to build on my little collection.
Goodbye, cruel world. I'm leaving you today. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Cold and dark and
Looks that pretty good, huh? Water coming in. If somebody reaches back there and grabs you, ain't supposed to be nobody behind us. The lost track. Dun 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 dun. They don't want us going up in there. Damn, I think the wheels are falling off. on, folks.
Because you see, another little tunnel offshoot to your left. We're going to make our way down this tunnel. And I'd like everyone to line up on the right side of this yellow fence you see here.
Those water monitors. It's like one of those water monitors.
Hello. Welcome everyone. Hope we all enjoyed the train ride. Good. How are we feeling? Great. Awesome. So, if you look all the way to your left, you will see the light at the end of the tunnel. That is your safe exit. If at any point in time you would like to leave, you can just give me a little wave, let me know, and you can head on out. Just make sure you remove your hard hat before you leave. But we're not trapped underground. Easy exit. But with all that said, welcome to the underground. Welcome to Britannia Mine. I always like to start off by asking does anyone know what kind of mine Britannia was? What were we looking for?
Copper.
Copper, yes, excellent. Britannia was a copper mine. Why do we want copper? What's useful to have copper in our everyday lives? Why do we want it? Any guesses?
Wiring.
Sorry?
Wire.
Wire, yes, excellent. That's the very important one that everyone always says. Copper wiring. Copper is extremely conductive. It's very important for our everyday lives, for our lightings, in our cell phones, in our flashlights, in our cameras. They're in everything. One of the most conductive metals just behind silver. So, important for everything around us. Makes life way easier. Another important thing we use in our everyday lives is, if anyone's a big fan of indoor plumbing, great, running water, we all love that. Copper is in our pipes. So, once again, very valuable for our everyday lives to make everything way easier. Another important thing copper is used for is currency itself. We used to have a little something here in Canada called a penny. We no longer make those here in Canada, but other places in the States, they still have their penny. In Greece, they still have a penny. Copper is used for actual currency in other places in the world. So, once again, very important in everyday life. I'm curious if, on your way in, you saw any copper while you were in the train. Anything on the walls, anything to indicate that there was copper here? Maybe not obvious, but did you see any color on the wall? Blue, green? Did we see bluey green? Yes, well, believe it or not, that's actually copper. That is, you saw gold, wow. Ooh, well, I doubt it's real gold, unfortunately, but if it is, well, you gotta let us all know. We might want to grab that later. But you saw that bluey green on the wall. That is oxidized copper. That's what happens when copper gets exposed to things like water and air. It has a chemical reaction and turns that bluey green color. An excellent example of this is a little something you might know called the Statue of Liberty. That tall bluey green statue in New York City was once that brown, brassy color you associate with coins, pipes, and wiring that turned bluey green due to exposure to water, air. Just over time, it oxidized and turned that bluey green color. Another example of this is if you ever see big fancy buildings around here in Canada, the Parliament buildings, they have that big dome bluey green roof. That's also copper. The intention when building those buildings was not to have a blue-green roof. They wanted that nice, shiny, brassy, bronze-colored roof. And then it just oxidized and turned bluey-green over time. But that bright blue-green is a little easier to see along these dark gray walls. Dark walls, bright colors, easy to see. But how did we know the copper was here before we opened up the tunnels, before the copper could oxidize, before we had that bright color to indicate it was here? Well, if you take a step forward, I invite you all to take a look at my lovely collection of rocks I have along this fence. Pull out your phones, turn on your flashlights, and tell me what you see. See anything interesting? Seeing, hearing, someone say it's sparkly. Seeing sparkles? We're seeing, what color are you seeing?
Blue.
We're seeing all of that shiny color, yes, that bluey color there, but there's also really, really nice shine in this rock. Yeah. What do we think that is?
It'd be nice if it was gold.
Would be nice if it was gold, yes. It looks gold, it looks sparkly, but as I said, Britannia was a copper mine. Unfortunately, despite its looks, it is not gold. If it was gold, we would not be having him sat out in front of you so easily accessible. That is a little something called chalcopyrite. Pyrite might sound familiar to some of you folks. Another word for pyrite is fool's gold. It's composed of iron and sulfur. It looks like gold, but it isn't. So, chalcopyrite refers to calco as in copper and pyrite as in fool's gold. A nice little mix of fool's gold and copper, which is why it looks like gold, and it's an excellent indicator that we have copper here inside these rocks. If you have enough chalcopyrite inside a rock, it is then called copper ore. We would collect this ore, send it off to the mill to be separated from the rock, which you will learn a little bit more about later. But go through the mill, separate it from the rock, collect that chalcopyrite so it can then be sent off to the smelters to get our pure copper. Because, unfortunately, copper doesn't typically exist in its pure form in the wild. You cannot dig a hole and find a nice collection of copper there. You gotta do all these steps, all these processes beforehand. But, great, you found your copper. We can see it, we know it's here. We have a nice long list of things we want to do with this copper once we get to it. But we're missing an important middle step here, and that is how do we get it out of the rock? Well, back in 1904, when the mine first opened, it was using these. This metal rod right here, called a drill steel or a hand drill, and this very sophisticated piece of equipment called a hammer. And it works about how you'd expect it to work, by sticking it into the rock and hitting it. Then you would turn it so it wouldn't get stuck, and you would do it again. Turn, 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 over and over and over and over and over and over, and you get the point. Now, that doesn't seem like the best use of time, the most efficient way to dig a hole, not the quickest, and not all that fun. I'm tired, and I was just holding it up. So, you can imagine this took a long time. Luckily, as time moves on, we get improvements. We have things that help us make this process go faster, and we make more money so we can afford this equipment to make the process go faster. Our first step in making this process go faster is to actually know where to dig. That would be a huge waste of time if we spent hours just doing this over and over, just to find out that there was nothing valuable under the surface. You can't just look at the surface and determine what's underneath. So, once we made enough money, we could afford machines like this. This is called a diamond drill. And it's called a diamond drill because of the special drill head it has. If I shine a light onto this drill head, we'll see some sparkles. Do we see the sparkles? Yeah, we're seeing those sparkles. What do we think those sparkles are?
Diamonds.
Diamonds, excellent. And what do we know about diamonds? They're extremely hard, right? So, being extremely hard means it can scratch other materials extremely well without being scratched themselves. In Minecraft, the best piece of equipment to have is a diamond pickaxe, right? Yeah. Yes, excellent. Yeah. So, that is why we use diamonds. And if you saw, that drill bit had a hole in the center, so using that drill head to quickly and efficiently drill into the rock, we would then extract this cylinder. This cylinder of rock called a core sample. The core sample would be sent off to the lab. You would do some tests on it, see what was under the surface, see if it was worth digging there. If we did some tests and determined that there was lots of chalcopyrite there, it was a good place to dig, excellent. Go ahead, start digging. Spend all that time drilling into the rock. If there was nothing valuable there, we did all those tests and there was nothing, that was an excellent indicator that we needed to move to another site and try again. And great, we've just saved ourselves hours and hours of work of hammering all over and over and over just to realize there was nothing there. So, diamond drill tells us where to dig. But we still need to actually dig faster. We know where it is, so that's a huge time saver, but we need something to make this process of actually digging, once we know where to dig, faster. That leads us to our next drill over here. And if you want to shift over and get a better look at this drill is called the piston drill. The piston drill was this large, powerful, air-powered drill that absolutely pulverized the rock, making this process way, way faster. That sounds good, right? We think we want that? Yes? Yes, we probably want that. And you would be correct if you were the company. You see, very fast, very efficient, great at making money. But for the workers, maybe not so much. You see, it was extremely powerful, extremely heavy, and extremely dangerous to work with. This drill weighs about 350 pounds, so you needed several workers just to pick it up and move it from location to location. On top of that, all of that weight mixed with all of this power, and with these very flimsy-looking tripod-like legs, you also needed 3 men just to be holding onto the legs while it was drilling into the rock to prevent it from falling over. But it often fell over anyway, and it would fall right onto the operators working with it. This would cause serious, serious injury. On top of that, it also created a lot of dust. This dust, the miners would then inhale, and the rock, the dust, contains something called silica. And silica is found in things like concrete, like brick, and glass. So the miners were essentially inhaling glass. And this is not healthy. This is not good for you, and this was causing a condition called silicosis. And silicosis can be fatal. So this fatal, life-threatening disease it was causing, these life-threatening physical injuries it was causing, it got the quite dark nickname from its workers and the workers' families as Widowmaker. But luckily, time moves on. We get improvements. You get an iPhone every single year because Apple keeps making new ones. We get better technology and we make more money so we can afford better pieces of equipment. So by the 1920s, we were then able to upgrade and get this drill right here. This drill is called the jackleg drill, and it solves all the issues that I just listed that the piston drill had, starting with, for its namesake, this single stable jack leg. This single leg, way more stable, and you no longer needed 3 people hanging onto the legs underneath it to make sure it did not fall over. On top of that, it was way lighter, at only about 150 pounds, so a single worker could now pick it up. And on the off chance that it did fall over, it would just tip off over onto the side, onto the worker's feet, onto their steel-toed shoes. So, way reduced physical injuries. Additionally, it had a separate water supply that would be attached to this pipe. And this pipe, if you take a look at it, has this little hole at the end of it. That hole would be pointed to where you were drilling, and water would be poured onto that area, and all the dust it was creating would immediately be turned into mud. And you might have noticed, but mud is a lot harder to breathe in than dust. And it's a lot healthier to have the mountain on you than inside of you. So, way reduced silicosis cases. Next to none because now they weren't breathing in the harmful dust. These advancements were so efficient in keeping the miners safe that we still use designs like this today. Obviously improved over time, a little bit of adjustments as time goes on, as technology improves, but the general idea stays the same. Way more stable, way lighter weight, and that important water supply so we're not inhaling harmful materials. And for this reason, this drill still works. And I am going to show you. So, this is going to be our first loud noise. I will give you a nice long countdown so you're all prepared by the time I finish counting down from 3. You can all be prepared to cover your ears if you so choose. I recommend it. It gets quite loud, but if we're all prepared, I will first be turning on the air so the air is going on, and I will be starting the drill in 3, 2, 1.
That was way louder than I thought I was going to be.
Woo, thank you.
You're drilling
Dr.
a
Joe. How we feeling? How was that? Good, good. Pretty loud, kind of loud. We thinking it was loud? Well, I think it's pretty loud too, but I'll tell you a little secret. I was not actually drilling into the rock. That is a pre-made hole. If I actually was drilling into the rock, it would be a lot louder.
That's what I thought.
On top of that, this is only a single drill.
It's going
And
mighty easy.
I was only having it running for a few seconds. But when they're actually using these drills in the mine, they're actually drilling into the rock, so it's going to be a lot louder. You would have about a dozen of these going on all around you at the same time, so it would be a lot louder, and they will be going off all day, every day for your entire 8-hour shift. That's not good for your ears. Back when we first started using these drills, they did not have proper hearing protection. They couldn't cover their ears with their hands because they had to use their hands. And they didn't have these special earmuffs on my helmet, or like what you see on construction sites these days. So, the number one injury for the miners leaving the mines then became hearing loss. But I just showed you a bunch of drills on how we made a whole bunch of little holes. If you turn around, you can see some of those holes on the wall behind you. And I've got to ask, do you think that we just drilled a whole bunch of those little holes all around to make this giant tunnel we're standing in? Does that seem very time efficient?
Not really.
Probably not. Just making a whole bunch of little holes, not the fastest way. Any guesses as to what we actually did to make this giant tunnel? Blasted, yes, excellent. We blasted our tunnels. We blew it up. We used dynamite. We would drill those little holes just deep enough so we could stick a stick of dynamite into them. We would make 24 holes so we could stick 24 sticks of dynamite into said holes. Make sure we're a nice safe distance away. Light them up. Count 3, 2, 1, and boom. Those 24 sticks of dynamite would make about 10 feet of tunnel space. Now, this process of drilling a hole and then blasting it went on for decades. Went on for 70 years until the mine closed in 1974. In those 70 years, here in Britannia, we blasted over 240 kilometers worth of tunnel space. For reference, if anyone knows where Vancouver is, if anyone has been to the city, it's about a 15-minute drive from up here in Britannia. You could drive from here in Britannia to Vancouver 4 times over with that distance. So, very, very, very long tunnel. Do we have any questions? No? Well, feel free to stop me if you do have any questions. I'm always happy to answer and elaborate. But if we have no other questions, I just showed you how we blasted our tunnels. And now we're left with this pile of rubble. This pile of ore that we now need to collect, filled with our nice chalcopyrite. And if you'll follow me into the next chamber, I will show you what we did with that pile of rubble. So you can all follow me. All
All
right.
it is.
Welcome to the next chamber. Hope you all enjoyed that nice long 2-minute walk. But we have just drilled a bunch of holes, blasted our tunnels, and now we're left with this pile of rubble. This pile of ore we now need to collect. This pile of muck. We called it muck. And so, to collect this muck, we use this very fancy piece of equipment right here. Can anyone tell me what this is? Shovel? Ooh, excellent, excellent guess. Unfortunately, that is incorrect. This right here is called a muck stick. Muck stick. Obviously very, very different than a shovel. Yes? No? Can't see the difference? Yeah. No, I'll be honest, it's just a shovel. I have no idea why they call it a muck stick. Nobody seems to know why they call it a muck stick. But for the sake of this demonstration, it is a muck stick. We've got a pile of muck, we've got our muck stick, and I, as the miner coming to collect this muck, I am called a mucker. And I'm pretty sure if I handed you this muck stick, you could probably figure out how to use it. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty simple. You would just scoop and dump. For this simplicity, this was the lowest level job, the entry level job, and also the lowest paid job. If you came to the mine with no prior experience, this is what you did. You became a mucker. But just because it is simple, just because it sounds easy on paper, does not mean it is actually easy. It is not physically easy. This is physically grueling. This is very painful to do this for hours on end. A miner had to collect 16 to 20 tons of muck per shift, all by hand. And for scale, this cart right here is 2 tons. So they have to fill about 8 of these every single shift. With only an 8-hour shift, which included portal to portal, they had a little less than an hour to fill one of these. So, not all that fun. Not great. No one wanted to do this. They would maybe do 1 shift, maybe 2, maybe last a week, and realize, wow, my body hurts a lot. I don't want to keep doing this. And they would quit. They would take their paycheck, hop onto the boats, make their way back into the city, and live off that paycheck for a few months until they found a better job. So, the turnover rates were extremely high. People would come and immediately quit. On top of that, while the miners who left were in the city, they would tell all of their buddies, hey, don't go up at Britannia, the job there kind of sucks, and you don't make all that much, so don't do it. So they also weren't getting any new workers to replace the ones leaving. With a turnover rate of over 100, or over 100%, this is not great for the company. The company wants to keep making money, and if all your workers are quitting and you're not getting new ones, that is a bit of a problem. But just like with our drill, we see advancements. Time goes on, we get better machinery, we make more money so we can afford fancier pieces of equipment to make our lives way easier. And that leads us to this machine. By the 1920s, we had this machine to make life way quicker, way easier. This is called the muck machine. I know, very creative in its naming, who would have guessed? But the muck machine, just like the drill, could do this way quicker than you could by hand. And just like the drill, it still works. So I am once again going to show you, and I will once again give a nice long countdown. This is not quite as loud as the drill. Some people don't even cover their ears, but it will last longer. So, if we're all prepared, I will once again give you a nice long countdown. By the time I'm done counting down from 3, I recommend that we have our ears covered, if you so choose. So, if we're all ready, I will be turning on the muck machine in 3, 2, 1.
There's nothing in it, it's empty.
Sorry?
It's empty.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm not very
You're
good
fired.
at my job, sorry. Unfortunately, not only am I not a miner, we can't actually scoop rock because this machine is about 70 years old, and as you get older, your aim gets a little bit off. So we can't scoop rocks because we don't want to be shooting them off into the audience. I hope you appreciate me not doing that. I hope I get a pass. Yes, I apologize for that. I apologize for not launching rocks at you. So, Muck Machine. It's a great time. Makes life a lot easier. Pull a few levers, move back and forth. I enjoy it. Go for a little ride. But that seems pretty easy. I didn't have to do much. You watched me just go back and forth. Same with the drilling chamber. You watched me pull a few levers, move that drill back and forth. I mean, even I could do it, and look at me. I mean, surely a full-grown miner could do this pretty easily. But we have something here today that makes my job quite a bit easier, that makes your time here quite a bit more enjoyable, that the miners did not quite have. And that is overhead lights. Now, even modern-day mines don't have overhead lights like these because they constantly have dynamite going off. With dynamite constantly going off, you're constantly blowing out the lights, and it's not economic to keep replacing them. But unlike modern-day mines that have high-powered battery flashlights, we did not have those in 1904 when the mine first opened. I know, crazy to think we didn't have flashlights. So, for my next demonstration, I will be giving you a sense of what the miners were seeing by turning off the lights. So, I recommend you all make sure you're nice and sturdy on the ground. Grab a darkness buddy if you're scared of the dark. Don't plan on running away anytime soon, because
Really?
you are a miner. You're going down to do your job in the mines, and this is what you see. Ooh, hint of darkness. But fear not. You are given a source of light to do your job, and that is this very easy to light candle. And woo! Let there be light. Ooh, fire. So, now we can do our job. Now we can see the floor. We can see enough. But I need my hands. So luckily, this candle came with a nifty little candle holder, and you would drill a hole into the rock, into the wall, stick your candle holder into that hole. Now you got a hands-free candle. Now you can do your job. But as you may have noticed, that is not all that bright, and it's also not all that reliable. I could knock it over pretty easily, falls on the ground. Now you have no light. These tunnels are pretty drafty. We're working with air-powered machines. You got a gust of wind blowing that candle out, now you're in the dark. And these tunnels are pretty damp. You've got water dripping down all around you. You got a drip of water that drips down onto that candle, puts it out, you're once again in the dark. And when your candle went out, you could not relight it. And that is because they didn't bring matches or lighters with them because the tunnels were so damp they were rendered useless. So if your candle went out, you just had to sit in the dark and wait until your shift was over and someone came and got you. Just sit there for hours on end. This is not fun. This is not safe. And it's also not great for the company because when your workers are sitting in the dark, not working, they're not making you money. But luckily, just like with the drill, just like with the Muck Machine, time goes on and advancements come along and we get improvements. We get upgrades. And that leads us to this carbide lamp. This carbide lamp looks a little bit like an air horn. Works by having a solid material in the bottom called calcium carbide. In the top, you would pour a bit of water, and this water would drip down into the calcium carbide and create a chemical reaction that formed a flammable gas called acetylene gas. Now this acetylene gas is still found in some modern day torches, but with just a little bit of a spark, you now have a much brighter light, a much more reliable light. If this went off, you just have this little striker, you flick it, and now you can light your candle again. On top of this, it's got this big dome around it, this disc, that amplifies the light, much like a modern day flashlight, and makes it directional. Much like a spotlight, you can now point it and make it a lot brighter. Ooh, it's been a long day. This guy's struggling today, but that's okay. You can imagine it's a lot brighter. Trust me, it gets brighter, I swear. But with the candle no longer needed, we no longer have our candle holder. This candle holder that allows us to use our hands. So they would take this carbide lamp and stick it onto their hats. Now I say hats and not hard hats because they did not have hard hats yet. They had cloth hats, kind of like a baseball cap, flammable cloth hats. So they were putting this open flame filled with flammable gas onto their flammable hats while they were working in the mines with dynamite. So you can imagine this was not all that safe. You don't think that's the best idea? And luckily, the government also realized this was not all that safe after nice short 50 years. In the 1950s, they banned the carbide lamp because this probably isn't the safest idea to have an open flame on your head. On top of that, you can see I've got my fireproof gloves. They had a slight tendency to explode sometimes. We're lucky enough here that here at Britannia we did not have any instances, but places like coal mines where you've got flammable material all around you and there's all that gas around you because you've got particles floating around, this is not the safest option. So the government banned them, but luckily by the time the government banned the carbide lamp, things like electricity were a little bit more common. So with the banning of the carbide lamp, that led us to our first early on flashlights. The flashlights were then given to the miners to replace the carbide lamps, and they looked like this. This is about 6.5 pounds. You would stick this giant battery onto your belt, clip it right there on you, wrap this cord around you, clip the light onto your hat, and be on your way. Now this is very finicky. You can see me, I'm struggling just to wrap it around myself. This is not fun to carry around, especially after dealing with this very small, light, portable light. So the miners weren't big fans of this. It also wasn't as bright as the carbide lamp, and they were used to the carbide lamp after using it for so long. So, despite it being banned, miners did often opt to use the carbide lamp anyway, illegally. But once again, here in Britannia, we're lucky enough that there were no instances. But you can see why that's not the safest option. Luckily, time continues to go on, and we now have these nice small little flashlights that don't weigh 6.5 pounds. They're way better and way more reliable, so I don't have to carry that around with me anywhere I go. But that concludes our time here in the underground. But if you recall, I promised you 3 loud noises, and you have only heard 2. So if you would like to follow me out of the tunnel, we're going to head down, take a right, make our way to the exit to the right at the end of the tunnel. I would like everyone to take off their hard hats, put them in the big brown bags set up on your left, and gather around outside of that gate for our 3rd and final loud noise. So let us be on our way.
Oh, crap. My back is toast.
All right. Congratulations, you've all safely made it out of the mine. I did not lose anyone today. Awesome, great, we love to see it. And because our shift here in the mine is over, because I didn't lose anyone and we're all safely out, I can now blow the shift whistle. The shift whistle was pulled after every single shift, once everyone was safely out of the mine. If there was an emergency, if something did go wrong, they would pull it 3 times, and that would signify all the people that would let everyone in the towns know that they needed to come, run up, help where they could. But that didn't happen today. So, for my third and final demonstration, I will once again be giving a nice long countdown so you can all be prepared to cover your ears when I'm done counting. So for our third and final loud noise, I will be pulling the shift whistle in 3, 2, 1. That could be heard for about 3-4 kilometers as the crow flies. Our neighbors probably love that, I'm sure. Having that going on about 16 times a day. Sure, it's great. Sorry, guys. But that concludes the shift here at Britannia, and in 1974 concluded the final shift here at Britannia. Now, the mine did not close because we ran out of copper. There is still plenty of copper inside this mountain. But just like the penny, it was now too expensive to get out of the mountain. It was costing more to mine it than it was making when we sold it. On top of that, environmental acts had been put into play that the mine did not quite follow. By the time we closed here in 1974, Britannia had one of the most polluted waters here in North America. This is because when you open up all these mines, all this tunnel space, all this exposed minerals, water runs down and creates chemical reactions and forms acidic material like sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is extremely acidic and very bad for the environment. On top of that, it's also mixed with all these heavy metals like copper, like iron, like zinc, which is also found within the mine. So those heavy metals mixed with that acidic material is very, very dangerous and very, very harmful to the environment. This is called acid rock drainage, or ARD. That is why, in 2005, we placed our water treatment plant here at Britannia. It's a little bit of a ways up the mountain, you can't quite see it. But this water treatment plant worked by putting in this material called chemical lime. Chemical lime is a base. If anyone remembers their high school chemistry, you have a base mixed with a strong acid, and it helps neutralize it. So it's more like water. It also helped us remove the heavy metals. When you neutralize the acid, you now are able to scoop out the metals. It's now nice and solid, it sinks to the bottom, and you can scoop it out. This treatment plant helped purify the water, and slowly over time we're starting to see a difference. After 6 or 7 years of the treatment plant being in place, we're starting to see the improvements, and the wildlife is starting to come back. All of the whales, orcas, seals that left the bay are slowly starting to return. Just recently, I have a bunch of coworkers tell me, unfortunately I wasn't here, but they were seeing orcas and whales in the bay. So the water treatment is doing its job. It is working slowly but surely. We're helping repair the damage that was done here after 70 years of not really understanding how those environmental impacts would hurt the environment. Now, there's still modern day mines. They still exist. Of course, we do luckily have more awareness. We have acts to limit what you can and can't do, but they still exist because we still need to get copper somehow. It's in all of our devices. It's still very important for everyday life. But that's also why it's important to recycle, because a lot of the copper we use today is actually recycled. There's a good chance you might have some Britannia copper with you today, because when you're done with your copper, when all those pennies went out of business, we sent them away, melted them down, and repurposed them. So, who knows, maybe you have some Britannia copper inside your cell phone. But that ends our time here at the mine, but not our time together, because if you will follow me down the hill, we're going to wrap around and make our way into the mill building, that large staircase-looking building there on the hill. There we're going to have a nice little look around, take some photos. It's a very cool building inside, and then we're going to be sitting down for our boom shows.